demo. We're going to walk through some of the infrastructure requirements and talk through the use case. So before I get started, what is this feature? It's the ability to select data from the cloud, S3 buckets, and have it appear into a file share and allow end users to control copy, move operations from the cloud to on-premise storage. So that's a key workflow for the MovieLab's 2030 vision of building a hybrid cloud only content creation architecture. So we've done a lot of the configuration. So what are the components? Well, there's S3 buckets that I'll call infrastructure buckets. And this is where data will be staged before it's copied on premise. So if you're selecting data as a user from various buckets, that data will be copied into this staging bucket and then from there brought on premise. So right now you'll see it's grayed out. That's because we have versioning turned on. So it's an empty bucket right now. The next bucket that's part of the solution is what we call the trash bucket. So as we move data into the staging bucket and it gets brought on premise, we don't want data piling up in this bucket. And so as it's copied or moved, it ends up in the trash bucket. So this is done so that you could go back and see what data was moved from the cloud to on premise. So what I'm going to do is just delete this so it's empty for this little demonstration. So we'll get rid of the data in the trash. You normally have a lifecycle policy set up on this, so this will automatically flush out the data after some period of time. So it's gray because it's got versioning enabled, so we'll leave it just like that for now. We'll go over to Golden Copy. So this is an application or workflow that you would provide to end users that need to select data from the cloud and copy it on premise. So I'm going to go ahead and log in as a regular user. And before you would actually jump right into the data mobility workflow, I'm going to explain how this works. Users have keys. Those keys grant them access to buckets. And in my case, it grants me access to a lot of buckets. They're all listed here. So I got to store my credentials for my cloud target here. And I want to be notified through email when my job's complete, so I enter my email address. The users then would select the workflow engine. Default is AWS. I'm going to select a bucket that's got data that I'd like to work on. So let's say it's some movie. We'll call it movie A in this demonstration. So I'm browsing a bucket with the credentials that are stored with my profile. And I'm going to come down here and I see a bunch of files and I'm going to select them all. I could pick a handful, but I'm going to just take them all. I could continue to add data to my job, but I'm done. So I'm going to move to step 2, which is the jobs, which is up here. I can preview the data that I want to copy and make changes. If I want to delete something, I just do that. And run job. So right now, the first workflow we're going to enable is cloud to on-premise. There'll be other workflows, as you can see here in the future. And the destination, well, we've authorized this particular share based on my Active Directory credentials to show up. Only SMB shares that I have permissions to see will show up in this list dynamically. So we'll pick this one. I want to be emailed, and a move would delete the data in the source bucket that I was selecting. And I would do that because I want to maintain a single version and not get into version nightmare. Versions all over the place. I'm going to do a copy. So I'll submit that job. It'll automatically take me over to the running jobs. This is a job just for me. It's running under my persona, and it's starting the tree walk phase. I can expand this and get additional details. So it's locating that data that I asked for, and it's staging it. So we can go over to the staging bucket. So we'll go back to staging. We see it's started to create data in the staging bucket. So here we go. We've got files showing up. This data will sit here until the pipeline configuration, which is configured to move data from the cloud to on-prem. It runs every 5 minutes. So worst case, the customer or end user has to wait 5 minutes for this data to be found and picked up. So we'll just wait for the phases to change. So tree walk, that's collecting the data into the staging area. This will change to archive. There's various stages that we can look at. We'll just take a look at the job to see what's going on. The job's running. There's my cloud mover job. Oh, let's do this. So as an administrator of the system, I'd be able to see more detail. So there's more steps here. So let's finish the tree walk. We'll go back to what the user experience would look like. So it's in the archiving step. And I'll just move over to a Windows machine that has the SMB share mounted. And you see there's nothing here yet. So I've got this mounted movie A, that's my share. So once this gets further along, this will copy the data for the user. Now the other advantage of a system like this is that we have records of who did what when. So you have an audit trail, so administrators can see the username, who submitted the job. Users can do this self-service, but administrators can keep an eye on the overall data movement between on-premise and the cloud. In this case, this is the data mobility workflow, so it's going from cloud to on-premise. So by combining SMB share security and S3 keys, what we're doing is we're combining the security models of the two and allowing users to securely look at the data in the cloud, select it for copy move operations to bring it on premise for some video editing workflow. So now we've started copying data on premise. What you see here is Smart Archiver-Demo. If you remember, I selected data from a bucket that was named Smart Archiver-Demo. This allows the user to trace the job to the data that they selected. So they know that this is the data coming from that bucket. The dash unique number, that's to avoid collisions. If there's buckets with similar names coming from different clouds, then we have to make it a unique name. And if I open this up, there's my data. So now I could do whatever workflows work on this data. If you have other pipelines configured, you can drag and drop data to other shares, and that can be copied back up to the cloud if you're finished. So there's bidirectional workflows that are possible here. So if we come back here and look at what the user is going to see, it's still finishing some of the steps, but ultimately it will then complete and email the user. So I don't have to look at this user interface. You can see here all the data has been deleted from the staging bucket. It's all grayed out. So those are just the old versions. We'll take a look at the trash. We deleted that earlier, and we can see all the data that was in that job has been trashed. So this will be life cycled out, but you can see how it's easy to monitor what data is coming and going out of the various buckets, and if you needed to, you could recover it from the trash can bucket. Here we can see the history. This is the history for this user that's logged in. It's demo 1. So you can see there's a few different jobs. One's failed and others success. So the user can easily go back and see what they've done previously. That concludes our demo of the cloud browser data mobility solution. Thanks for watching.